I will call the March 13th, 2024 meeting of the Fire Station Building Committee to order. We are meeting in room 120 of Town Hall. It's also accessible by Zoom. All committee members attending the meeting are present, so no roll call needed. First agenda item is public comment. See anyone from the public? No one in the room, no one on Zoom, so we'll move right to the first discussion item, which is IT department signal booster options. Tom, you wanna?
Yeah, because what I'm interested in, what I'm advocating for the new fire station is a single booster, and it's a universal vendor. So it can, it just basically what it does, it take the signal outside of the building and then bring it inside the building, and it vendor agnostic, so it will amplify the signal of all the carriers like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and others, mobile carriers. So that is what it does. I advocate that because it's universal and is vendor agnostic, so and it works for everybody. Versus where we have Verizon and AT&T, they give us free signal booster, but both of them, AT&T, it dedicated to AT&T phone system, and Verizon dedicated to Verizon phone system. So if you have anybody from any other carrier, depend on how the signal works, it might not work at all, depend on the building. So I'm just advocating a universal signal booster because of that ability. So it just is my duty is just to bring what's the best for the building, and that would be the best for the building. But if the budget is cost is too high or it's not worth it, then we can go with the no cost option, which is AT&T to Verizon only.
So if you went with the no cost option, are you getting both Verizon and AT&T or just one?
Both.
You would get both.
I'll get both. Each of them provide a signal booster.
Got it. So then if we went that route, the only issue is somebody with some other cell phone carrier, if they were in the building, it might not get boosted.
Correct. Might not get the signal strong enough. So they can hop on the guest Wi-Fi, but like everything else, like the Wi-Fi is not the greatest.
Okay. Do we know what the cost is?
The cost, I don't have the wiring, but I have the cost, an estimate cost from one of the vendors for about $16,000 to provide the signal booster for installation of it, but they are not performing they're not running the wiring. So we're going to have to add a wiring cost to it, and I haven't been able to get the wiring cost estimate yet. So we're going to be on top of that $16,000.
Is the wiring cost included in the Verizon and AT&T cost? Like is it totally zero cost with those two, or would the wiring cost still be?
The wiring costs are going to be much less. The reason to that is we are some of the area that Verizon are looking at is we are in provision for it. The only place that we need to add is AT&T in the Bay. Just one area that we need to run additional wiring for them, but that would be it. So the cost for AT&T and Verizon wiring is minimal.
Okay. Are there any other buildings in town that have this universal booster?
The police department.
Do we know what their total cost was for the time they installed that?
I don't remember.
Are they having issues with it?
I'm not aware of. They did have to change out the controller recently. That's when we're talking to Matt Mountovich. He told me we have to change it out because back was a problem.
With the no cost ones provided by Verizon and AT&T, are they responsible for maintenance or we?
Actually, it's gonna be us doing all the work, and we just have to report back to them when things doesn't work, and then we send a replacement.
And is there a cost for the replacement?
No,
And that's with either the universal, is that the same for the universal one, or would we be on the hook for the maintenance costs of,
we'll be on the hook for the maintenance cost.
for the universal?
Correct.
But AT&T and Verizon would fix theirs.
Yes, they will send out a replacement.
Who's the carrier for the town provided phones?
Oh, we do have Verizon, and Verizon is our main provider. But the AT&T FirstNet is for the fire department, police too.
If we went with AT&T Verizon day one, see how it works. And if it's not working because some Mary Jane down the road with her obscured telephone can't get the signal. Is this something that can be added later on?
So anything can be
At a
added
similar
later on.
cost, or is it going to be exponentially higher because building's complete and now you can't put the wiring in or whatever?
Once the building is complete and we go with it and we are up and running with it, and let's say we want to add the system in later on, the wiring costs are going to be slightly, well, I'm not sure how much more expensive it is, but once everything's buttoned up, there's still room, like as I can tell, that where the wiring can be run. The only tricky part is the roof penetration for the antenna to go up the roof. So that's where the additional cost is going to be coming in. If we do it later, we do it now, the wiring is going to be slightly less because the work's been done. And how much it is, I don't have an answer for
I
you.
would be inclined to just go with the AT&T and Verizon because they're the two primary carriers for most cellular phones. Whether you're on T-Mobile or whatever, you're still utilizing their backbone system. It's not like a standalone type system. They have different cell phones themselves, but it's down to a handful of, only a few carriers that are out there, even though, you got Cricket, you got all these other cell phone companies, but they're on the backbone of either Verizon, AT&T, or I even think T-Mobile is on one of the carriers, one of those two carriers. So I would be tempted to just offer the free service. And again, the Wi-Fi would be able to help that one person. That would probably be an issue, I would think.
Do we know if we built in infrastructure for a signal booster when we spec the building out? Like, it's possible the wiring could already exist, or at least a chase for it.
Steve or Ron?
So we do, sorry, just drove in here. We have the infrastructure for it, and what that means is that we have plenty of room in our data cabinets to add some wiring and to get a signal point located. Most of the ceilings are accessible in terms of the fact that they're acoustic ceiling tiles, if you will. So this isn't a really big lift in terms of getting this signal located within the building. The big question mark that came in during, our review of all of this is one company thinks they need half a dozen, like Verizon, for instance, or AT&T, whichever Tom was talking about. The other company had like 30. So there's kind of two parts to this, right? Let's figure out exactly how many we actually need. And then once we know exactly where they're going to be located, we could easily pull those wires now. We do, and I'm sure Steve's going to talk about this in a few minutes, right? We have a pretty healthy budget right now. There's 90 days left in the project. And to answer your point, it will be exponentially more money to do it after the fact. So the only thing that would be easy to do after the fact is actually just go connect the device to the ceiling. But pulling wire after the fact, after ceiling grids go up and so forth, can you do it? Absolutely. We've made the building flexible enough that you can add these things later in the future and modify whatever you want to modify in the future on the second floor anyway. I just think that putting the wiring in now would make a lot of sense. And then you can decide what you want to do with the devices. As we've seen, technology changes every day, But on these types of things, the cost usually stays pretty steady because the technology gets better, but they don't become any less expensive. And in some cases, the technology gets better and people think that they can charge more just because it's better technology. So I don't have a crystal ball, but if it were my recommendation, I'd say, let's figure out where the phone signal devices need to be. Let's get the wiring installed for them. And then decide when the devices go in.
Yeah, with
So
that,
maybe
with
after
that
Christmas.
universal system, I sort of just roughed out what I thought the estimate would be because there was quite a few runs of wire that needed to be installed by the electrical subcontractor, and I gave about 3 days with a couple guys. Then if there's an antenna, there's some roofing work, and I just sort of put a plug number on this very specific wire that they're requiring. It's from Wilson. I'm around about $8,000 to do that work as it was presented from Betco, who was the vendor for the universal system.
Yeah, go ahead.
We haven't had the electrician or Castagna price it up specifically. That I'm just sort of putting some hours and some rates to the numbers.
So whether we go Universal or AT&T, Verizon, we still have to have wires. I'm assuming, correct? Is my assumption correct?
But my understanding from what Tom said and has said before, AT&T and Verizon only need a couple network drops somewhere. They don't need wiring pulled up above the ceiling, the way it was presented from Betco. Am I correct in that, Tom?
Yes, it is. For Verizon, we're looking only 2-drop, and AT&T only 2-drop, so altogether 4.
Missed the beginning of this. Why are we having this conversation?
So there needs to be a single signal booster system installed on the project. Verizon and AT&T will come in and install it, both systems basically for no cost.
Why do we need the signal booster?
I think
Well, we need the signal booster is for a mobile phone. So once you're inside the building, the signal can degrade and depend on what you have. The signal can drop on you in the building, inside the building, and when you get it to a place where you have a lot of brick or wall, it's again the mobile phone the cell phone gonna degrade. So the signal booster, what it does is it bring the signal from outside into the building. Your cell phone can work better.
Sorry if this is all revisiting. Who's asking for the signal booster?
I'm advocating it.
so. Tom's advocating for it. Verizon / AT&T. So my understanding is both would be installed. We'll basically install the signal boosters for no cost.
I'm sorry, you're correct. They give the equipment for no cost.
Okay. They give the equipment for no cost. But if we wanted to install a universal system for someone who doesn't use AT&T or Verizon, that's where this wiring, there's a wiring potential wiring cost of $8,000 and then a $16,000 cost for the devices.
For the device installation configuration.
This is a presumed need, not a known. We don't know we're going to need a booster.
Why I presented that we go with AT&T first, see what their issues are.
AT&T and Verizon.
Whatever.
For whose cell phones?
The point of the Cricket user that comes in that doesn't have access to whatever AT&T, blah, blah, blah. However, there's Wi-Fi in the building as well. So usually typically if you have Wi-Fi, your cell phone will still work. But there might be an off instance where there's one user that has a cell phone that doesn't work inside the building.
So we're
The town
talking,
is on Verizon.
we're talking about cell phone service for the general public inside the fire station.
Imagine workers too.
Well, I think we're leaving
Everybody that uses cell phone inside the building.
Or why wouldn't the staff be on Wi-Fi?
They will be. I think that it's, the Wi-Fi signal's weak or something for some reason in some part. However, the town staff has Verizon or AT&T, so they will be covered. So yeah, it would be basically someone who's not using a town issued device.
Is this something that's come up on other projects that you guys manage? And if so, how have they solved this problem?
Ron, I think I got questions to you for.
I haven't.
I think I haven't. Yes, it's come up on one project in my past history, and that's when I learned not to do copper siding. The whole side of the building was copper panels. Erin's getting a good kick out of that. Yeah, so that was just kind of like one of those screwy things, and it was a long time ago. I'm sure cell signals have changed. This comes up on projects where you're asking if we've done it before. The answer is yes. And it's less because of the building and more because of where the cell towers are. So, when you have police departments or fire departments who want radio repeaters in their cars, on their person, in their stations, it's because the cell signal off of towers nearby are just not strong enough, right? They don't have the signal getting there. So has it come up? Yes. Have we dealt with it a lot? No.
Issues with the site and the signal currently the way the site is?
I mean, I can say anecdotally, like, right, so I have AT&T, I have one bar in here. So it's possible that it could be an issue, but I'm inclined to agree with Todd that number one, we don't know it's an issue to spend $24,000 or whatever it is. So why not do that, the Verizon and AT&T, at least if it is an issue, the cost is reduced as much as possible. And then later on, if there is an off chance, if there's some reason that we need someone up than AT&T and Verizon and deal with that.
I mean, I'm not opposed to saying like put in a chase that we could easily run the wire in the future if we do need to upgrade the system. But I don't know that we need to go through the spending the money to install the system in the whole building.
I think I missed the dollar amounts too. What are we talking?
So
Or do we not know?
the unit, the wiring costs, we don't know. I think, Steve, you're estimating $8,000, right?
Correct.
So the cost to do the universal work is $16,000 for the devices, $8,000 for the wiring. With Verizon and AT&T, there's no cost for the devices and the wiring. You don't need all the wiring. It's just some network drops, it sounds like. So it's almost a no cost. By the sounds of it.
Talking like $30,000 all in.
24,000, something like that.
So what do we have left for contingency?
A lot.
Over 800 in the construction.
$800 or 800,000?
800,000 in the construction contingency.
But Erin, to answer your question, Steve, did you want to just fill them in on the total amount? Because it's more than, so basically this job, I don't know. Why don't we have the budget discussion now, Steve, if y'all don't mind, because this will maybe make your decision a lot easier.
But before we do that, I think it's still important to me that, like, the taxpayers entrusted us with this money and we intend to return it to them. We shouldn't spend every penny just for the sake of spending it all.
So, sure. I mean, if there's a good reason to do it, I'm kind of feeling like, number one, we don't know if this is an issue to spend $24,000 on it. And number two, it might, even if there is an issue, it might be resolved for 99% of the people between Wi-Fi, AT&T, and Verizon for almost no cost.
And they would pick up future maintenance as well.
And they'll pick up future maintenance as well.
The flip side of that is you're trying to plan for a building in service in town for 50 years.
Yeah. I straddle a bit on it. I actually do want to talk about the budget because then I want to go back to Tom and just understand because Tom made a recommendation. I'd like to just dive in a little further into why you made that recommendation. But I do want to talk about the budget because I think having that budget conversation kind of enlightens us something. I'm on the fence. Where I'm at. So
Well, the reason that I recommended the universal signal booster is because, it's my responsibility to bring what's best for the building. And what best for the building would be something like that, because you don't know who's walking in the building and using what anymore. Everybody have a cell phone attached to their hip nowadays. And it could be from any vendors and any carriers, so we don't know what it is, and it's not just the staff, could be anybody from the town official, from different communities coming into the building for whatever, for the meeting and so on. So it will be a nice service to provide. We have this very nice, fancy, 9 to 5 station. It would be nice to have that service, but again, I'm just recommend that because without that's the reason why I'm recommending that service, versus, go for Verizon and AT&T for almost no cost, except, for network drops. And the future, the replacement for no cost too. So that is the reason why I'm recommending it. Yeah, thank you.
Were you gonna go through the budget?
If you, yeah, I just made sure that he was done talking.
So I saw this as a discussion item, but there's no action item on it tonight. So are we still compiling costs and then we'll officially vote on it at some later meeting?
When do we have to have it decided by?
Yeah.
Do you guys hear that?
Mhm.
Do we need an action item tonight, or if we don't need it tonight, when might that action item be? On
Well, I
this
think
topic?
if we're gonna go with the more robust system, the universal system, that has a lot of the wiring involved. And, right now, Castagna just got their electrical inspection and the building inspection in order to start closing up walls on the second floor. So they're moving towards starting to put grid in. I mean, not that they're gonna put tiles in, but without the grid in, running wires through that second floor is a lot easier.
We
I
don't
don't
know
have-
what wire, yeah, we don't know what the wiring costs are yet.
No,
Estimated $8,000, but
I estimated, right?
the number's not known.
It's plus or minus. And well, I guess we sort of have to go by what Betco was the company, what their drawing was for what they need for coverage.
If Verizon and AT&T were to install it, when do they do that? What's that coordination look like?
It will be happening after the building is buttoned up. So we already do a signal test with both of them, and they give us the location of where we need to put the network drops to install the devices. So that's what we're working on, and that is provisioned in the wiring now. So that will be in place. So the only thing that is not there is the wiring for the universal booster, because they're using a different cable, versus the network cable.
The testing that Verizon AT&T is doing, it's coming in the future, or it's already done, Tom?
It's already done.
So the testing that they did, they indicated that we needed those signal drops, was to indicate there were signal drops or loss there?
Depending where you're on the building, the Verizon signal is pretty strong. But as you go into the building, it's starting to degrade. Now, again, the building has nothing. Everything it's just a shower at this point, so the signal fairly good. But as you go in, you go from 5 bar down to 3 to 2, as you go depending where you are in the building. And AT&T see the same thing too. So when the building is, or the sheetrock is up, doors up, and everything else, it's going to be worse. It's not going to get any better. but the signals for Verizon, they take too strong on the outside of the building.
Is there a booster on this building?
No.
Do we get complaints about cell phone service?
I think it's individuals hit or miss. I have two different connections and two different phones. One has a better connection than the other. It is what it is. I don't know.
Tom, do you see a negative with going with the universal? Like, what do you see as being a reason why we would not go with the universal one?
The ongoing maintenance costs and, they ongoing maintenance costs for it, and you have to maintain it like everything else. That is an added cost that, I would prefer not to have. But is my duty to recommend what's best for the building. You know, it's not what I have to do more work.
And you said the police station has a universal
Yes.
system. Have you had to do any maintenance on that yet?
No, I don't. That is under the contract, and that's, the only thing that we would have to replace with the controller. Over for almost 5 years now. So there seem to be, that's a cycle, 5 years, a controller have to replace. That's experience what we have so far with it.
What's the controller cost there?
It's about $1,000.
Okay.
We don't have to decide, like I like the thoughts idea is that to install all the signal booster in now. But if we can run the wire and have it in place already, in the future, we decided to use it, it would be much easier and cost much less to run the wire, because the wires are in place during this time to have it in place. But if we start to run it from the scratch, I think the cost will be higher. So it is the balancing act.
So you could do that. We could go with the Verizon and AT&T route and then spend the 8,000 or whatever it is of the wiring, but not spend the $16,000 in the devices. And then later on, if it's a need, you buy the devices.
Correct. That's one way of going at it, and I think that would be the best approach.
You want to run through the budget, Steve? I guess it's probably a good time to do that now.
Yeah, I mean, our budget's in really good shape. Again, I've been in general showing each month where we stand with the construction contingency, which initially started out a little over $1 million. Given, and I've got a slide in my presentation that will show it, but I can go through it verbally here. Given the change orders that we've issued to date, which are 3 plus potential change orders, some that have come in recently, some that we're still working through, and anticipating a few others, we end up with still having about $815,000 left in the construction contingency. But we also have the soft cost contingency and the owner's contingency, which we really haven't touched too much. The soft cost contingency is about 212, and the owner's contingency is 301. We have had some items that were a little bit higher, like the audio visual was over our budget by about 6, and then the largest one, which we know, was the station alerting, which we carried 50 and we're at 105. But we have other line items that are coming in less, and some that we carried that we probably won't use. We are still working through equipment, FF&E. Certain things aren't fully completed yet and priced, but we have our purchase order for our furniture, which is a large item. We got our purchase order for the audio visual. We got our purchase order for the station alerting, which are 3 of larger items, cost wise. So again, $24,000 in comparison to that is not a lot of money, but obviously we're trying to come in as under budget as we possibly can, and making sure that whatever we spend money on is what's necessary. So we're looking at every change that comes in. That's the way we're looking at it.
So, yeah, we've got about 1.3 million total in contingency now.
Yep.
Doing construction stuff and all.
Yeah, correct.
We've got 90 days left for the new building, roughly.
Yep.
So the biggest risks then on the contingency at this point are what?
Demo.
Demolition and hazmat in the existing building, and any potential ledge that we haven't found on the existing fire station site.
Yeah.
Why would we have to deal with ledge on the existing fire station site?
We have some underground piping that's going to take the drainage systems off to the east side of the property and the north side of the property.
Right.
Which has not been installed yet because the building's in the way. So there are still some underground trenching that needs to be done, basically for drainage piping.
Yep. It's not a lot, but I mean,
and
I don't
light
wanna say-
fixtures, things
yeah,
like
I don't
that.
want to say we're out of anything yet until we actually are.
I mean, my gut, I guess we can go. If we needed, so we need a decision on the wiring tonight, or we don't need a decision tonight.
Well, I think if you want to move forward with maybe the modified option of the AT&T, Verizon, and the infrastructure for the Betco or the Wilson / Betco system, we would want to go and issue a proposal request to Castagna to get to the electrical contractor and apparently the roofer too for antenna penetration, and get those numbers. And I guess if they're in the range of what we're thinking, then we can go ahead and implement that to get that work done, before areas start getting closed up.
Steve, could we think of this maybe a little bit more universally, and that instead of pulling wire, could we just put in a conduit or two for whatever future technology needs might be needed from the electric rooms to the roof?
Well, my recollection of the drawing that was shown, there was a lot of wire crisscrossing that second floor. So if you're putting in conduit, conduit versus the cable itself. And again, I don't know what this cable costs because we haven't priced yet. But I can't think it's super special. Yeah, I think
No, it's basically coaxial cable.
Yeah, I think you'd be your best bang for your buck is just to run the cable, because it'd be a lot of run of conduit.
Yeah, and the
If it was-
conduit's
if it was a
probably going to
sleeve,
cost more than
that
the
would be bad.
cable.
I guess the way I'm leaning is run the wiring, but don't buy the devices. That way we at least have some level of protection if something changes in the future, but we have kind of the Verizon and AT&T stuff installed for the immediate future.
Different ways to look at it, right? I mean, the wiring's 8,000 now. What's it going to be 5 years from now? 16,000.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the fence about it as well, but I think what you said about it, like being a more robust building, like we built a category 4 building. It's as robust as it can possibly get. It's a critical piece of infrastructure. Even at $30,000, that's like 2% of our contingency. I mean, as much as I don't want to spend money, I don't know that I see a compelling reason not to go forward with it. And if we're just running the wiring, we put in $8,000 for the wiring and rots there for 50 years. What was the value in that?
Say that last part again.
If we just install the wiring and never use the universal signal boosters, what was the point of even installing the wiring?
It's just future protection, really, if technology changes or something later.
I wonder if it,
But I guess the wiring could go out of date as well.
right. But I wonder if we, cause I guess we have to ask for a proposal. Maybe we say, we've done a not to exceed number on a number of other things. Maybe if we go that route. I don't know. It does seem worthwhile to support the critical infrastructure that we're building here. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be used, that we're going to get the full money out of it, but I'm sure there could be a time where we're like, damn, I wish we had done that.
So if you do the universal booster, you don't need the Verizon and AT&T.
No, you don't. But they could coexist, so we could always, in a pinch, we could always add back in, because we already have provision for those, network drop already.
We put the owner contingency in the project to plan for things like this. It's pretty short money.
Yeah,
It seems like good return for the investment, for flexibility over time. I'm having a hard time. I mean, we've asked a lot of questions to try and prove that it's not worth it, and I'm still thinking it's worth it, so.
yeah. I mean, if it's $24,000, it's less than 2% of the remaining contingency. So what do you think?
It's one, I hope for people who watch this video, we really care about, I think I want to test, we trust it. We really care about being prudent with, the finances and taxpayer money. I am still on the fence because I'm like, if we don't need it, I don't want to spend the 30,000 for it, because every dollar matters. But I can see a case for why we just include it and move forward with it. But if we do, I do like the idea of a not to exceed figure. Because if that wiring is more expensive than you think, Steve, then I think it's prudent to just run the wiring at least and then just end it there. What I would hate is that we look at this later on in the project and have to spend exponentially more to install. That's the part I'm more worried about. Because it'd be like, we could have spent the short one.
Well, I'm weighing it in my mind against what I still consider the frivolous acoustic study that we had to do. And we use that as, we justified that as it's insurance down the road. I don't see a reason not to use the same justification for this.
I'm still gonna stand AT&T, Verizon, majority, no issues, Wi-Fi in the building. I don't think you're gonna have a problem. If you do have one off, that person can move around 5 feet or whatever, pick up a signal, shouldn't be an issue. That's just my 2 cents. Again, we haven't had any issues here. I've been at the police station, haven't had any issues there, but I am on Verizon, so
Well, the police has the universal system.
I realize, but I'm just saying, I've been at different departments, different buildings throughout town. There is some signal loss downtown here with AT&T. I know that because I used to have AT&T. Tried to run Christmas tree sales over at Dunkin' Donuts, doesn't work. So yeah, I'm familiar with certain roads you drive down, all of a sudden you have a drop.
I mean,
And
it's
you know
like,
me, I love to spend money.
Right.
it's like a 1/10% of the total budget.
I mean, I think it sounds like at least the majority of us, I know it's not unanimous, but majority of us say, let's get the wiring cost, if this is not to exceed between devices and the wiring, $30,000, that we move forward with it. I guess we know Todd's opinion. What about everybody else?
30 seems reasonable to me. It's 2%, 2-ish% of the contingency. It leaves a little buffer from just a napkin estimate.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like a realistic number.
Sarah.
No, I think thinking it at this point, but I mean, maybe we go with the 30,000 not to exceed. If it comes in higher than 30,000, we go with Todd's backup plan and we just approve both. That way we've made a decision in either direction and the building's covered. It's better off tomorrow than it is today.
So if it's more than 30,000, we just go with the Verizon and AT&T.
I like that. I
Yeah.
think that's a good compliment. And
Yeah.
whatever is meant to be,
Okay.
I like that. That's a good.
So do I have to? I mean, I guess you and I are allowed to approve change orders up to 50,000.
Yeah.
Is that right, Steve? I don't remember the exact figure. I'm wondering, do we need to take a vote or do we just leave the discussion as is? And then you get Justin and I the number. And if it's less than 30,000 or less, it's going to be approved. If it's more than that, we're just going to go with Verizon and AT&T.
We could go with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
5 minutes.
I gotta get going soon, so.
Everybody sees the diligence for doing this project.
Yeah,
I was got to leave at 7. So
They can't say we didn't look at it.
hope the OPM reports quick.
Gotta talk fast, Steve.
Jump ahead.
Well, we gotta wrap it up at 7?
No, Todd's got to leave at 7.
Oh, okay. All right, do you want me to, start the, OPM report?
Please.
Yes.
Hold on one second. All right. Yeah, you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
So, progress since our last meeting, which was in February, masonry interior chases and granite lower band have been ongoing. Installation at MEPFP rough-ins have been ongoing throughout the building. They started the installation of switchgear in the main electric room. The overhead steel door frames and the training room hoist beam have been installed. Elevator installation has started, and it sounds like they're going to be done possibly by the end of this week. Light gauge framing and insulation is continued on the first and second floor of the interior. Sheetrock installation and taping has started. Exterior insulation, light gauge furring, and plywood has been ongoing. The siding and the vapor barrier has started. The west side is mostly complete, and they've wrapped to the rear of the building, the south side, and they've done a little bit of the north front of the building. Roof installation of the asphalt shingles. The EPDM is mostly done at this point also. Site work restarted with doing some of the building perimeter drainage, which is for the roof drains. And the building envelope commissioning agent came in and tested the windows. We did have one window that failed. They identified where the issue was. That's been corrected, and we have the commissioning agent coming out on the 1st to retest that window. And they've been temp heating the building as necessary, although it seems like temperatures are starting to get milder, hopefully now. Photo documentation for this past month. We did get a couple rounds of aerial drone photography from Andy Bakanowski. So the first few, this was taken just on March 9th. That's an overhead view of the site. This is a view of the north face, the front face of the building. The northwest view of the building. The direct west aerial shot. The rear of the building, the south elevation. And he did this on a Saturday, so there was a couple people working, but not too many. And then the west side, which is they've been working towards, and as you can see in the foreground, that's the one-story training room. That still needs to get shingles, but you can see shingle roofing. I go back. You've got your shingle on most of your slopes at this point. The main body of the EPDM is done. The training deck has its membrane on, and also the dining deck, and a number of the canopies out front. This is just sort of an overview shot of both stations. As crowded as it is, things have been working well. There's been no issues for the FD on any of their access and response times. Just getting back down to some of ground level photos. It's going back to March 6th. Again, this is the front of the building. You can see the borough siding is on this. They've wrapped it to this section, and then they have since gone around the rear of the building. This is just another view of the front of the building, closer to the existing station. It's a view of the west side. Two sections. They got most of that done. There's a few details that they have to do. You can see it on the short gable here. This is a view of the exterior wall above the training deck. This is the second floor. This is the new door that was cut in. We'll go over some other details on the training deck a little bit later on. This is again from the rear of the building. You can see the subcontractors working on the rigid insulation, and then working on the plywood, and then the tieback that goes over that just prior to the installation of the siding. It's a view of the west side. Again, the one-story training room. You can sort of see the progression of things here. You got some plywood here. Here's you got your liquid applied vapor barrier, and in this section you got your vapor barrier here, and they're working up with the insulation. So this is a very tight exterior cladding system. Next photo is the apparatus bay under construction. This is facing northwest. And another view facing north. They started to put ductwork in. A lot of the sprinkler and plumbing piping is in. Obviously, they're going to be using these bays with storage of materials as things get delivered. And then another view on the west side of the apparatus bay. Next photo is progress on the elevator. It's at the first floor. Delta Beckwith has the frame in, ready to be finished off with block. And then they've been working inside the shaft. And it's just a view of the shaft, various components. Next photo is progress on sheetrock in the corridor where the dorm rooms are at the front of the building on the second floor. Next photo is just a shot of the officers' dorm. They've got again sheetrock. They started the taping. You see utilities hung at the ceiling line. That's ready to come in. Next photo is just showing some of the wall framing in the deputy chief's office on the second floor. And photo of the chief's office, same thing next door to deputy chiefs. They're at the framing stage. That's at the opposite end of the second floor from the dorm rooms. They're working from the dorms towards this direction. Next photo is just a view of the roof from the roof level. Again, you can see the asphalt shingles, the slope roofs in the background. And that's a view of the dining deck with the EDM membrane on the deck and going up and over the parapet wall. Any questions on progress over the last month? Okay. Schedule look ahead. Complete the masonry chase walls and exterior granite bands. Complete the roofing of the EPDM membrane and that should be continue the asphalt shingles. Continue interior metal framing, blocking, insulation, sheetrock, and door frames. They're going to start the tile work in the toilet rooms. I'm going to complete the elevator, complete the rigid insulation clips, furring, plywood, and trim on the exterior. Continue with the siding. Continue with your MEP, FP rough-ins on the first and second floors. Continue with site work and drainage, and then come back and do that testing on the one failed window. So other issues, the signal booster we just went through with Tom. We know what we're going to do with that. The Mass Electric Code, just to let everybody know, the project was bid in 22 and designed and bid in 22. At that time, the 2020 Mass Electric Code was in effect. The 2023 Mass Electric Code was implemented February 17th of 2023, but was retroactive to January 1st. So this project is, although it was designed and bid under the 2020 code, I'm sorry, that shouldn't say 2022, that's 2020 code. The bid in 22 under the 2020 code. The building needs to meet the 2023 code. So we've had some discussions with Pete Diamond, the wiring inspector, and the building inspector, just going over what things need to be changed. And the engineers have gone through and done a comparison between the 2020 and 2023 code. And there may be a couple things that have to be adjusted, but it does not appear to be that many. Ron, I don't know if you have anything more to add to that.
Yeah, so the changes are minor. We have some circuitry in the panels. To put it simply, we're taking out one circuit type, putting in another, which would provide arc fault and ground fault protection. And some of the other things were cybersecurity is now part of the code, and the wiring inspector is checking that out with John. But as it stands right now, we do not believe that any emergency system in the building, such as emergency lighting, or anything like the fire alarm system, that's not connected. It's not network connected. In other words, it's standalone items. You don't have it in the cloud, so nobody can hack the cloud, if you will, and get into your system. And if you have emergency generator that fires up the entire building. So if someone were to cut your power, again, your emergency systems and your quote unquote cyber networks don't go down. You have a UPS. You also have an emergency generator that fires everything up. And the emergency lighting, which is obviously on the network in the building for the building automation system, that those fail on. So if somebody hacked into your system and they think, we're going to knock out their emergency lighting, well, they're not, because if they knock it out, the lights come on and they stay on. And so I think we're covered there. There are some minor things that we're reviewing with the wiring inspector now, and just make sure that all gets addressed. So here's the good news, right? When we went into this project in 2022, bid in 2022, we did advise everybody that three things were most likely going to happen. Number one, the 10th edition building code was going to come out. You may remember those conversations. We didn't know what the 10th edition building code was going to change. But we couldn't design to the 10th edition building code because it may actually not come into play. And of course, as it stands now, it didn't come into play. So had we designed to the 2023 10th edition, we'd be screwed, right? Same thing with the new energy code. The new energy code came out and changed significantly, like a big significantly. And the good news is that it actually didn't go into effect until the summer of 2023. We were well under construction with our permit. And that code, it's when you apply for the permit, not when you pull it. So we had other projects that we applied for the permit, and then the code changed. The contractor went out to pull the permit after that, but it's okay. So we avoided 2. We didn't get to avoid the one, which is really weird for them to come out in February with a draft. By the way, that February 17th was a draft. The final version of the code, and it's called, what is it, ratifying the code or adopting the code? Actually, it didn't happen until March. So, but either way, it has a weird note in there that says it's retroactive back to everything from January of 23. And I think that's the case because there weren't a lot of changes. So,
Ron, why is this an issue for us? Because we weren't permitted for our electric until after January 1st, 2023.
yeah, so the bids came in December 22nd or December 23rd, 2022. We actually received the bids in December, reviewed the bids, had the vote. Remember, we had to have them hold their price so that we could vote on the project. Once the voting was done, we gave them a notice to proceed on February 2nd or February 3rd.
First.
They went down to pull the building permit. They ended up pulling the building permit in March, and the wiring inspector did not issue the wiring permit until June. However, it didn't matter because, like we said,
It's
it has
retroactive.
that sentence that's retroactive back to January 1st. So you hadn't even had your vote yet
Right.
when the code changed.
You had that town meeting vote and then the ballot.
Why? Why?
Like, so the end result of this is there's a change order coming, or is that in our numbers, Steve?
There could be a change order coming.
Could be, yeah. Our discussion with Castagna today is we did put something out. They just got it from the electrical contractor, but they hadn't submitted it to us yet.
So is that in our 1.3 conversation, or is that coming out of the 1.3?
I put a plug number in for it just because I knew there may be something. So
we
yes.
got
So the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, it's in the 1.3 number.
Depending on what the number comes in.
There's a plug number for it in the 1.3.
So-
In my potential change orders, it is correct.
Thanks.
So the next item is just sort of for information. An issue came up. The showers on the project were specified as fiberglass shower stalls. The ADA stalls were manufactured, excuse me, incorrectly, and wouldn't have allowed them to be installed as delivered. Castagna offered to essentially do full tile on those ADA showers in lieu of that because they just, they were made incorrectly. They didn't see that they were going to be corrected and delivered quickly enough, and that this is essentially a no-cost change from the contractor. But there was a discussion on it, so I want to make sure that the rest of the committee understood.
Is that a done deal, Steve? And maintaining tile over time is a lot more difficult than maintaining fiberglass.
We had tile in that bathroom anyway, and
Yeah.
it's large format tile, so there's very few grout lines.
Yeah.
It's basically
and
just
Matt
think
was
of
involved in
countertops.
Station also, so he knows what he's going to be getting.
Yeah.
This was discussed with Justin and I last week, but it sounds like the issue is that we couldn't get a replacement fiberglass shower in time.
Correct.
So a decision was made to take them up on the no-cost alternative to put in tile.
Next item is air handling unit access. The building department was concerned about maintenance access to HVAC units and requesting potentially a platform and a clear aisle. This is currently under review. We've discussed it. Bob was on the site this afternoon, and I talked with him a little bit. The air handling units haven't been delivered yet, so as far as visualizing what exactly is going to be there is a little difficult. The one in particular that we're talking about, if you guys recall, the area where we were gonna do the beam signing. There's an air handling unit that's mounted on that steel. That's why that steel is actually there. It's in the west side of the app bay. So what we've asked Castagna and the HVAC contractor is part of their coordination drawings is they use BIM, so they've got some 3D views of that. We're going to try and get a 3D view because that air handling unit does get connected to ductwork. So installing a platform, you really have to visualize it to understand what can be done and what makes sense. But we are going to do that. I think I don't know if you recall, but I think I might have a photo of it.
And so Steve, so this unit,
So there it is.
the plan right now is to access it with a ladder. And
The plan was to access by ladder for maintenance for filter changes and belts and so forth.
And this, again, this is a decision that's been made.
No,
No, not yet. This is a fairly recent item that's come up.
Do we have a cost?
We don't even have a design yet.
Is there going to be a cost to design it?
yes. So what, before I just jump on that one. So what the code reads is that, and Aaron, you know this, right? So I'll walk you through this and see what you think. So the code says that every mechanical unit needs to have access to pull out filters and replace filters, right? And to access whatever motor or anything that's in there that needs to be maintained. So we have this unit, the chief, just by way of scale, I can't even touch the beam if I jump my best, but the chief can walk up to it and just put his fingers like on the top of the beam. So that's how tall this is. Oh, actually, there's a 7-foot door right there. You can see it, right? So the bottom of that beam is
bottom is 8 feet.
Yeah. Excuse me, the bottom is 8 feet. So long story short, the concern is that if they have their fire truck in the first bay or they have anything else underneath this unit, they have to move those things in order to put a ladder up in order to access it. So in our conversations with Bob, he believes that a unit this big should have like a platform. Like you should be able to have a walkway in front of this unit to maintain it. And so, we routinely hang some things like this in buildings, and it's never been an issue. Many buildings use a genie lift to get up, change light bulbs, fix fans, access mechanical units, and so forth. So we have not designed anything yet. We brought this to Justin's attention. We've been working with Bob to kind of see what we can do. We've talked to Matt, the facilities director. And so as it stands right now today, Bob's interpretation is that this unit should have had a floor or an access way or a walkway around it so that you can stand on the walkway and service the unit as opposed to being on a lift or on a ladder. And our interpretation is just that you have clear access in front of it for a lift or a ladder.
But it's not as simple as a walkway. It needs access to the walkway. It needs a railing around the walkway. It needs like a set kind of walkway, a special floor and whatnot. Like a fire station's occupied 24 hours out of the day. If they need to move a vehicle, that's not a very high lift to do that. And we frequently move our vehicles to access windows, overhead doors, Plymouth vents, light bulbs, all sorts of things.
And you're gonna have, so everything that you just mentioned, they have to move the trucks to do.
Yeah, there's other units. There's the fans. I mean, you saw the photo of the app bay. There's all kinds of utilities being hung off of that high ceiling.
I don't understand why the size of the unit makes a difference. Like the maintenance items are the same.
It's an interpretation by the code inspector.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, it's an
our
interpretation.
professional is saying their interpretation of the code is different. The town's inspector is saying his interpretation is this way. So the question's gonna come down to sounds like the project recommendation is it's not required. So is the town inspector going to require it, or is it just a recommendation?
He's requiring it as we stand today.
And we did meet with him for a little bit this afternoon, just to kind of get clarification and to discuss it. He was very adamant. He wasn't backing off of it. And at least when I left, because I had we ended up getting fired and other stuff to do, but that was where it stood. And he being the authority of jurisdiction, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If his interpretation is that it needs to be there, that's the way it has to be, or he was signing off on the certificate of occupancy.
Do we end up putting that door in the kitchen area?
Yeah, well, not the kitchen, it's off the day room.
We did.
We have
Yeah.
to bear the burden. It's for a personal interpretation of something.
Yeah, we gotta start our list. It's like the third item.
But we didn't do the door.
I did too.
The door was free. They ended up putting it in.
Didn't we talk about this meeting that we didn't want the door?
It was gonna be like a tiny
Castanya's
door.
donating the door.
They gave us.
That's irrelevant.
You got a door.
You got, you got,
The door's not the issue. The issue is the ramp and everything outside, right?
well, we're getting to that. An item's on the list.
There's more.
Oh,
I mean, it's
might have to redo our vote. Might.
it's just too bad that it's like we go through all this effort to make sure that the project doesn't cost a certain amount of money or is within a certain amount of money, and then somebody who's unconnected to the project has enough control over it to say, no, you didn't need to make this substantial change with no room for discussion. It completely hamstrings us as to what we can and can't do. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a building person, I'm not an inspector. I don't see the value in it, and I feel like it's going to be a significant cost. But ultimately, I guess it doesn't really matter what me or anyone else thinks.
Unfortunately, you're right, because if we can't have a meeting of the mind or change Bob's mind or opinion on this, it doesn't matter. It's going to have to get done. In our discussion today, there was even some thought that putting a catwalk around that actually makes it more dangerous. Right. It doesn't actually help. The situation actually hinders, because now you have a catwalk, which now limits your access to certain areas. You're gonna have these giant, you can see there, you have all these giant duct things that are be hooked into it. So how are you gonna navigate all the way around the unit as opposed to having a ladder to get to the spot you need to? Like it's gonna create some issues. And I understand Bob's intent behind it as a safety thing, but after I looked at it with my own eyes and went, like, you could give me a box that I could stand on and probably change the filters in it. I'm not saying that I'm doing that. I been talking to Matt. He was like, I'm gonna use a ladder. I prefer to use a ladder. I'm gonna use a ladder because if I gotta do something on this end and then there's duct blocking me on this end, that means if I gotta do a catwalk, I gotta get on the ladder, go up there, do this, either duck under or have a second ladder. Like there was some concern about that, but if that's his interpretation of the code, we have to either change the ladder or we have to do.
How wide would this need to be? Like, would it interfere with the movement of the apparatus because of the width of it?
We don't know that yet. I know in discussion today with Stania, they're gonna have to find a way to anchor the catwalk too. So there's either gonna have to be extensions put on, what you see there is metal, which would protrude out into that bay a little bit. There's potentially could, but it probably shouldn't. There's probably enough space to where it won't, but I can't, we don't know because we don't know exactly how, once the unit's in, how the catwalk is either going to be anchored, whether it's going to be anchored to the metal you see there, or it's going to be hung from the ceiling, whether we have to put extensions on that to make a place to anchor it to. So, but it will have to be OSHA compliant, and you have to have a 30-inch wide wall. All those things and railings will all have to be incorporated into that.
It just did Was this inspector ever involved in review of the documents before the building was built? It's like, is this something that should have been picked up on before or during the design phase? I know
So
you
we
can't.
did
But
meet with him. We met with all the departments 3 or 4 times. And then towards the end at 90% CDs, we met with Bob. And he had the drawings ahead of time. We sat down, we reviewed everything. At that meeting, we walked through. I mean, the opportunity was there to discuss all this. He did ask for smoke detectors deployed throughout the building. You have a fully sprinkled building with an addressable fire alarm system. Smoke detectors are not required by code, but since he asked for them, and it was the only thing he asked for, we deployed smoke detectors throughout the building. So you have smoke detectors everywhere in the building.
so he,
yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, he reviewed the plans and didn't make a request on this specific instance from review of the plans. And then came for a site walkthrough and made the request without the air handling unit installed. Is it possible that we can get the thing installed and then get it back to demonstrate the ability to access it before he makes a final decision? Would he at least be willing to make that accommodation?
We don't know that.
By the other can of worms, there's another air handler for even where the bunker gear lockers are. We're potentially in the same.
Yeah, there's a second area.
You could have the same opinion, and there's no provision for that to have a catwalk as it stands right now.
I mean, I don't know this gentleman, but is he open-minded and flexible? If we made a compelling argument, would he at least consider it?
I'll take a crack at it, Steve, and I think we're setting up an internal meeting where we will speak with Bob, so we can all understand. I think, Bob is the building commissioner, he's a zoning enforcement officer. He's in that role for a reason. I will meet with him, we're scheduling a meeting. I think we go from there.
Was Matt in the conversation when Bob was there?
Oh, I don't know about when Bob was there today. I didn't see. Matt was.
That's part of why I want to have an internal.
Yeah, because
Matt wasn't there.
That's the one that's gonna be working on it, maybe his opinion.
And I spoke with Matt. I spoke with Matt after that. Like I said, I think it's good for the team to meet collectively and talk it through. And we'll have Matt there, we'll have Bob there, we'll have the chief there, we'll have the group there, and we'll just talk through it, make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Was there any cost to that platform incorporated in the numbers you gave us before, Steve, or not at all?
No, not at all.
Small. No, and it's potentially times 2. So we've got smoke detectors, the ladder to the roof, the door to the training.
Yeah, but the
Right.
smoke detectors are already installed. That wasn't a change.
No,
I'm
I
just saying.
think Aaron's making the list
Oh,
of.
We've added smoke detectors, we've added the ladder to the roof, we've added a door to the training deck. We're talking about a catwalk at an AHU and potentially a second catwalk at another AHU.
No, there's no ladder to the roof.
We put in anchors.
Because no, we didn't put the anchors in because we put the
No.
door in.
Yeah, the door went in instead of, we did talk about a ladder for a while. And we were gonna put blocking in for a future ladder, but the door issue avoided that. There was no reason to.
Now you're making me nervous, right? We voted to put the anchors in and we voted not to put the door in.
The door's in.
The door is in and the anchors aren't.
Correct.
Correct, yes. So the next item is a discussion about the entry vestibule and the lobby. Ron, maybe you just want to start right off on this one.
Yeah. So the entrance vestibule, we have when you walk into the lobby and look back towards the vestibule, the ceiling over the vestibule is sloped and kind of slopes up towards a window on the outside of the building. It gives you a nice look into the outside and get some daylight into the building. What we then have over the bathroom is kind of the walls go straight up to, I'm trying to find a picture here, and I'm going to share with you share it with you on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So may I share my screen? Let's see if I can do this.
Do it. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Steve's on it.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay.
I'm off.
Okay, so what we're trying to, what's going on? All right, can you all see this?
Yes.
All right, so when you come into the lobby, you've got this slope ceiling that goes up to the sill because of
Sorry,
the
where is the entrance door in relation to this picture?
this is the entrance door right here.
Okay, so so that's the door to the exterior of the building, or where's the exterior of the?
So you go through this door, you're in a vestibule, and then you got the same size door on this wall back here that goes outside.
So our back in this photo is towards the apparatus bay or somewhere in that general area?
Our back is towards the elevator,
Okay,
right? So our back is against the elevator, and to the right of us is the training room.
okay,
To the left of us is the stair that goes upstairs and then through to or you go through on the left, you go into the trauma room or into the stair that leads to the apparatus bay.
okay, thank you.
Yep, sorry. So as you come in, we have the door here. So, I think from a design perspective, this was the design that resulted during the process. And when we went out and took a look at it, there was a lot of mechanical that was supposed to come through the apparatus bay, through the trauma room, across the vestibule lobby, and then up into the training room. During coordination, we were able to move a lot of that stuff out so that you see it kind of here. It comes back against the elevator wall and then over into the training room. And they were able to get it in there without having to go through the bathroom. So that gives us the opportunity actually to get rid of this area. And so what we are recommending is a design change to open this space up. And what that would mean is we drop this sloped ceiling, we drop it to here, and we continue it all the way to the wall. Right? And that way, there's going to be a ceiling where that red line is. This wall comes down, gets to the top of the window, comes all the way across to here. So now you have, it's just a much wider space. And what that means is the change would be to take the slope they already have and just drop it down a little lower. They put a soffit in here for the window. That's our existing 16-foot ceiling. And if we're looking at it in the plan, you have the vestibule here, the bathroom here. Right now, the sloped ceiling is just over the vestibule, right? So if I do that as a color. So right now, the slope ceiling is just there, and then this goes all the way up to the deck. We're saying bring the slope ceiling all the way over to that shaft. And what you end up with is a much cleaner looking lobby. I'm trying to hold on. What you end up with is a cleaner looking lobby than rather than have this block of basically dead space above your bathroom.
And
so once
there's there's no window above the bathroom. It wouldn't be symmetrical with the windows.
Nope. But at the same time, we've been talking to everybody about some murals. There's a lot of pictures in the existing fire station. There's a lot of, action scenes of Norfolk fire in action. And what we were talking about is possibly having a line right at this height of that slope ceiling that runs around all four. So it would be the wall of the stair trauma room. The exterior wall would just go straight across. That would come across the training room wall, which would go across the elevator wall. So you'd get this nice geometry of wall space where we could put a mural between the height of that slope and the bottom of the ceiling. And it would just be this ribbon of Norfolk fire. And we would work with the chief and his staff to come up with the graphics for this and put the murals in.
And there's no chance this area is gonna require a ladder or a door or a railing?
Correct. I don't see why it would. There's nothing up there.
The window.
And well, yeah, there's a window.
You have to clean the mirror.
Clean the window.
Yeah.
Steve, why are we doing this? Why is this being recommended?
I think it's just a better design, and it's an opportunity to take advantage of the space that's not needed for the mechanicals.
At a cost?
And the contractor gave us a ballpark of less than 25,000. And we reviewed it with the chief and his staff. We reviewed it with Steve and Doug, the OPM, and we reviewed it with the contractor, and they went over it today with us at the meeting and said that, you know, they can get it done for, so if you're looking for like a not to exceed ballpark, it's 25,000. We would give them a better sketch than this to go forward with it. We wanted to bring this to you as quick as we could, so you could see the ballpark cost involved and what it would mean to the station. You know, it may be something you want to go down and take a look at, but the chief can talk to it too. He was there today and took a look at it.
Would this wait until after we hear from the building commissioner about the need for a catwalk? Or is this something that has to be decided in the near future?
Yeah, they're pretty much, you can see they're ready to button up these walls. So they said they're going to hold off for a couple of days, and that was last week. We sent them this on the 6th. They worked with all of their contractors to come back with that ballpark today, and we told them we'd get you a quick answer. So the catwalk, I also want to put out there that the catwalk, Steve and I have been thinking about this, and you know, there's a couple different ways we can do it, right? We don't necessarily have to make it all out of steel. Doesn't all necessarily have to be welded. There are some pre-engineered aluminum products out there that they actually build for guardrails around roofs. And what we were thinking is between, you know, putting up some painted lumber and putting up the aluminum. You know, what we don't want to do, if the building inspector continues to request the platforms, we want to do that as economically as we can, just like we've done on everything on this project. So we don't have a ballpark for that, but at the same time, you know, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we get a platform up there that's simple, it's pre-engineered, it just gets delivered to the site and bolted to the steel.
I can appreciate that, but at the same time, I wouldn't want someone to walk in the firehouse and be like, this is so nice. What happened over here?
Oh, no, we wouldn't do anything. We can't do anything ugly. I mean, that's just not right.
Yeah, that's a wide open area, so.
Yeah, and whatever we do, we want to make sure whatever we do anyway, we want to make sure that when people walk in, they're like, oh, this is beautiful. They don't see it as like an add-on, if you will. And this area right here, you know, if we'd have known they'd have taken a different route with some of that stuff, you know, this is the nature of like design, bid, build, right? You don't have the opportunity to talk to the builder about means and methods prior to construction. We would have asked them to do this. So I think what we're proposing here is a better solution for the lobby. And just because they were smart in how they do things, and we have an opportunity to do it.
It's gonna bother me if there's not symmetrical windows, so I think I'm a no on this.
I mean, you put this in the frame of reference of the rest of our conversations. There's no substantial benefit to the project for doing this. It's an aesthetic change, right? And this is the architect talking.
That is correct. It's an aesthetic change.
So, I mean, it's kind of hard to justify. It's built the way it was drawn, so it's not like this is a change. This is actually what was in the drawings, right? So,
Correct.
and in a world where, we're talking about $30,000 for IT system upgrades, we're talking about probably, I don't want to know what the catwalk is, potentially doubling that number. We still haven't resolved the door issue, the training deck. We've got underground work left to do.
Yeah.
I'm getting nervous.
Yeah. Likewise, I think it'd be nice, but the $30,000, $20,000 to $35,000 things are kind of piling up tonight. I mean, is there a reason why we can't put a mural on the wall we're looking at right there?
No, we can. We absolutely can. It's 100% what Aaron said. This is an aesthetic thing. We can certainly do a mural on this whole thing, you know? I get the, I get the feeling it's gonna stay. So now we'll come up with a way to keep it and still make it look nice.
I think it's a little too early to say whether it's going to stay or not. I mean, if the decision has to be made tonight, I don't know that we're ready to make that. I mean, there's a lot of question marks have come up tonight, right?
Okay, yeah.
If we can understand this in the frame of reference of the entire budget, right? But
With some of these other things that have come up now.
I mean, I know it's hard to do, but let's say we run into ledge when we're digging for the pipe that we got to put in. What's that? What number is that? Right? Is that in our number? I don't think it is, right? So
Right.
Is that a 5-digit number or is it a 6-digit number? Is it low 6 digits or high 6 digits?
Okay, I understand.
I mean, I know we're getting close to the end, but I think in order to make some of these decisions and be responsible, again, with the taxpayers' money, we need to understand the entirety. And it sounds to me like we've got a growing list of things that we don't quite have buttoned up from a dollars and cents standpoint. So.
Okay.
I think really, I guess if there's some time to go back to this at some point, next meeting, or I don't know, then maybe we can look at it. But if a decision needs to be made tonight, I think I gotta lean towards no.
Okay.
Understood.
Doesn't look like it.
Seems like we're unanimous.
Yeah.
So are we ready for the next item?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, next item is the mock-up panel, the aluminum storefront. The aluminum storefront door was finally installed last week. There's two details at the bottom of the door that we'd like to review with you. There is a recommended detail, but it's where if you recall, we have the granite band around the lower band around the perimeter of the building. There is an intersection where the aluminum frame comes into that band, and let's see, I got a couple photos. It's easier to. Okay, so you can see that there's our. Then this is in the mock-up panel. It's not in the building itself, but this is in the mock-up panel. There's our wind-rated aluminum storefront door, and then below here's the granite band, which is the siding and the frame is beyond the face of the granite band. So if I bear with me with some of these photos. So we had the installer Aluminum Glass Concepts do two different lower frame details for review. The first one, which is on the right-hand side as you're facing the door, where the frame comes straight down, it extends beyond the face of the granite, and then there's your siding above that. I've got a couple,
So what's the ask here, Steve? You're asking how we want to finish off the detail of the frame at the door?
yeah, I want to show you what we have, and then we can say what we're recommending and just get an agreement on that, consensus. So there's the two sides where the frame actually protrudes beyond the granite. Then we have on the other side, that's face on. So there's a caulk joint here. Now on the left side, we had the installer cut that frame back so that, or your I guess your frame extension, so that your actual door frame at this point is flush with the or set back a little bit, but more flush with the granite, and then this piece here would get a bottom cap to close it off. And I can get another photo. So there's a little bit more of a side shot on that. And that's sort of a straight on view. So this side, you're really not covering that granite. That granite band is running somewhat uninterrupted.
What does this piece of aluminum do, Steve?
This piece right here?
Yeah.
So that's
an
the-
extension. It's an
No,
extension of the door frame?
Yeah, so that's the
closure
door,
piece.
that's the storefront system. And the storefront system, as you're aware, right, you typically have your normal storefront system. Because of the depth, the thickness of these walls, the insulation thickness of these walls, we have an extension on all the frames. And this extension would typically go to the ground. But the contractor came back and said, hey, do you want us to take it to the ground the way it should? Or should we cut it even with the siding so that we're covering that gap of our thicker insulated wall where we don't have that gap, you know, because of the thickness of the siding and so forth, where the granite is. And our recommendation was to cut it back like this, as opposed to having this stick out past the granite down below. So if
So
we
a
just
couple of questions. So is the door is in plane where we expected it to be?
yeah,
Yes.
Yep.
The extension of the door frame that's cut in this photo, if it was pushed back to the plane of the granite, what would happen at the
you'd
siding?
you'd have no finish at your siding. We'd have to come up with a different siding detail.
So the face, it's kind of hard to see in this one. The face
Yeah.
of the aluminum is flush with the face of the siding,
Correct.
and the
Yep.
siding is how thick?
The siding comes in layers because it's board and batten. So you've got 1.5 inch battens, 1 inch siding, or 1.25 inch siding. That gets you back to your plywood, which then gets you back to your 4 inches of insulation and the standoffs. And there's the picture right there. So you can see how, you know, the extensions are required on this kind of thick wall, right? So, and by the way, that's a short door. So it's kind of Mickey Mouse because it's a mock-up. The door is only like 5 foot 9 inches tall. So, but what we're trying to do is get the frame. So the only question that came in was that the frame would go down. The frame would go down to the ground, or we can cut it so that the granite, you know, kind of runs through and the frame stops the siding, which I thought was a good proposal. And this is a no cost issue. This is just a contractor asking which way do you want it finished off.
And there's no option for the granite to extend underneath the cut frame? Or
Right,
extension
because then we
granite?
would have had to pad the granite out. And the granite on the building is pretty much installed.
there any left over?
Yeah. There probably will be. I mean, I know that they have some cuts.
Could you extend the siding trim down with granite?
Good question.
I think
We
I've been
probably,
more, that's-
we would probably have to do it with an adhesive. Because I don't think we'd have room to get a nailer, like even like a thin plywood nailer.
No, sorry, not extend the siding. That was a bad choice of words. I mean, actually add a piece of granite that's the same width as the trim board.
You mean?
What do you mean right here, Aaron?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like a return?
Good question. I don't know. Because we could, again, that would be, you'd be sort of gluing one piece to the other. Because as you can see, it's only like an inch and a half,
yeah. What,
You know?
how many doors does this happen to?
all of them.
All of them is what?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at most.
What if you took this one here and built like or put an extension jam on the side that would cover the granite, so it looks more complete, and it like, I don't know, tapers into the granite or something out of the aluminum. I mean, I'm not particularly thrilled with either option.
That's what I was thinking of the granite. I mean, your idea is the same as mine, except I'm using granite instead of metal.
So you're saying put a piece of metal to bend it back into.
Yeah, at least round it off or give it a edge or something.
This would get a sealant joint right here anyways. There wouldn't be a gap there.
Yeah, there's no gap. I mean, we're either gonna seal the granite to the frame. And, you just have a frame. It's picture framed, whether you're picture framing it with another piece of granite or you're picture framing it with the aluminum against this granite. I mean, either way, if it just comes to the ground, then we
I
just.
think cutting the aluminum off makes it look like a mistake.
I do too, yeah.
I think
Alright,
this
that's fine.
this is better. I think this is a better solution. And I actually think that if this again will look like we didn't quite think it all through, which is a very technical detail. And a way to remove that from happening is to see if we can put another 5-inch piece of granite in front of the one that's there. So I don't even know if Steve's talking out loud. You're right. I mean, they would have to be like Loctited there, and I don't know if they're going to pop off or not. Just something to think about. But
Get some water in there and it pops off.
Yeah.
And everyone looks worse. I mean, the aluminum's not a bad idea because then you could.
But
Pass it in.
but again, the aluminum, like if you squint, if it was granite, you squinted, you never know it. If it's aluminum, you squint, you're going to see it.
What if we
You're just drawing
extend
your
that
attention to it.
board and batten of the siding down like a 5-inch width of that straight down to go all the way to the ground and overlap the granite a little bit? Is that an option?
I actually think, this isn't, if you go out there, it's not as complicated as I guess maybe we're showing or explaining it. I think bringing it to the ground and putting in basically what you're seeing there on the right is the granite comes and it butts up against the aluminum. That's the design. And, that's the design that works. It's the design that we intended. I think the only difference is that the contractor said, hey, do you want to cut this off? Which we initially thought would look like crap, which you obviously do. And when I saw it, I was like, well, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other to me. Let's let the building committee decide. But
I'm sorry, Ron, is there a further away view? A full elevation view?
yeah, Steve had it a minute ago.
Yeah, it's tough to see with the lighting though, like the.
I think
Yeah, so you really can't see with the way the lighting is.
Yeah, the sun was behind the mock-up, so.
So, I mean, I think bringing it to the ground, it's an easy thing to do. You're right, Aaron, right? Cutting the extension off, cutting the extension off.
Yeah.
It does look a little weird. I don't know. Like I said, to me, it was a owner decision because any aesthetic, everybody has a different opinion, right? So we can definitely leave it the way it is on the right-hand side where it comes all the way down to the ground rather than cutting it off like it's shown on the left.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's decided. The only other thing, let's see, in regard to the mock-up is the mock-up where it's located, because we don't have a lot of room, is in an area that requires site work. So does anyone have any issues with, now that we determined what we're going to do with the storefront frame, allowing Castagna to demolish the mock-up panel? Or if someone wants to look at it before, we can make arrangements in the next week to take a look at it. But at some point, it does have to be moved out of the way and thrown away.
We've made all the decisions that our mock-up benefits us with or helps us visualize.
The last thing we had was the storefront, which was a long lead time.
The only reason to keep it now is to make sure that the finished product looks like the mock-up. But the mock-up wasn't really a detailed mock-up. It was more of a makeshift mock-up. So even that use is slim. I mean, the only reason to keep it really is to argue about colors. But my recommendation would, I mean, helping it's going to move them, we might as well. I would say let's just make sure. My recommendation would be to make sure we have it photo documented well enough that if we need to reference it, we've got every nook and cranny. And
It's a good
not
idea.
make a big deal about it.
We probably have several hundred photos of it over time as it is, but we'll make sure that we do. I'll have Doug do one more pass, top, bottom, left, right, front, rear.
You need some full 360-degree Andy Bakanowski drone shots.
I think he's got a few. All right, so we'll photo doc that, and then we'll get rid of it. So next item, schedule. Again, still no change with schedule. They are moving towards a mid-June, June 15th substantial completion, which would have the FD moving in the beginning of July. The long lead items, the generator had improved to February. Now it's a March delivery, and the AHU units that we were just talking about, as far as at least one of them in the app bay, we have ship dates of 4/22 and 5/25. So once those show up, they're going to have everything as far along as they possibly can to set this in place, connect it electrically, ductwork, and controls. But there's nothing, at least at this point, that they've indicated as a delivery issue. And then just as far as the completion through the end of February, Castagna is approximately 55% complete with the project. Some recent change orders wanted to go over, and mainly because of one for the training deck, but PCO 31, there was a couple duct smoke detectors that were required in one unit. That was $4,258.60. PCO 32, we did delete a small 6-foot CMU wing wall in the app bay, and we got a credit back of $658.72. PCO 33 is for deleting the BDA system, the bidirectional amplifier system, which would give us a credit of $42,559.70. However, we did have a discussion today about just making sure that it's not necessary and having the test done in the building at the point in time when it should be tested. So we're going to hold on to this now until we I know the chief wants to get rid of it, but we talked about just having that paper in the file. PCO 34, there were some revisions to the exterior building signage that came in at $11,372.52. there was some signage deleted, some signage added. It was a variety of adds and deducts when we're reviewing that. PCO 35.
Steve, have we seen the building signage changes?
We haven't gone over it yet. We issued it. We want to look at this cost. But I don't, Ron, I don't think we've presented it necessarily here at the committee meeting. We've talked to the chief about it extensively.
I don't think we have. You want me to? I'll find it and bring it up on the screen real quick.
Or you can just email it. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, we can chat about it for a couple minutes. I'm almost done anyways. Do you have? I'll stop sharing.
I gotta find
So
it.
why
First.
don't you, Steve, why don't you
All right, I got
finish? Steve, why don't you finish and we'll do that? Sorry.
Right.
Hold on. Okay. So I think sort of going back to some of the issues we talked about, PCO 35. This is for adding the pavers to the training deck to go along with the requested door. That came in at $51,496.96. Probably a little higher than we thought we would. This is the training deck is set up that either end of it has pavers as part of the base contract, and that was for the fire department to do training on the training deck, and they'd have a solid surface to stand on. Because of the addition of the door to have access to the training deck from inside the building, which it didn't have before, we had to deal with the fact that you needed a level surface and I guess a accessible surface from the building, which means filling in the majority of the deck with pavers so that everything is level, and would also require raising the parapet wall to ensure that we have a 42-inch guardrail height, which would entail a little bit of blocking and then extension on the coping, which we don't have a price on yet. This is simply the price for the added pavers.
And what about the drains in that area of the roof?
Well, the pavers are lot. These aren't solid; they're on pedestals, so it's almost like a computer room type of thing, but it's for outside. So water goes through it and gets to the drain.
And you can pull them up to clean the leaves and stuff out of the drain?
Correct. Yep.
So
But each
the issue,
paver is, they're 2x2 pavers and they're like almost $36 a piece. And we need 450.
Again, I still don't understand why we have the door, so we gotta have that conversation. And this free door is gonna cost $100,000.
going to cost $51,496 plus whatever sleepers on the roof.
Plus parapet, plus railing, plus sleepers.
How tall?
It's only wood blocking, so it will not be $100,000.
But Aaron, your point is made, right? So this was requested by Bob, and then it just kind of snowballed into, the contractor just saying, hey, we'll donate the door. And then, so here's the key to this, right? You built your police station, and Matt Hafner had brought us through the police station saying all these things weren't ADA compliant. So lots of decisions are made on projects. And this is one that you can make. So we now have a door to the training deck. The door to the training deck technically is not handicap compliant. And there's nothing we can do about that because, the building wasn't designed to have, and the wall thickness would have needed to change, right? Let's put it that way. So, and one can argue that in over-interpretation anyway. So the bottom line is, if we step down onto the roof, just leave the roof the way it is and have a step down to the roof, It does not need to meet MAAB, which is the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, because we're going to put it on our list of areas that are not open to the public. So nobody from the public should be going out on the training deck. And it's maintenance only, so they can go, I guess, clean the drains. Even though this drain, by the way, is completely exposed in the room below that does not have a ceiling, so you can always just unclog it down there. But if we step down, we don't have to add any of these pavers. The reason we're adding the pavers is because the Americans with Disability Act, which is not a Massachusetts code, it's a federal regulation. So if you had somebody go up to the day room and they're in a wheelchair and they say, I want to go out to the deck, you can say to them, it's a training deck and you're not trained to be out there. Done. Don't need the pavers. The door goes in. We don't have to raise the guardrail. Done. However, my concern is that you guys disband as a committee, even though we have these notes on the drawings and we have whatever documentation we need during design. If the town goes out and hires someone to come in and do an ADA assessment of all town buildings again, someone would come out there and say, well, wait a minute, you have this door into this nice, beautiful deck. There could be a new fire chief, there could be new staff, there could be new everybody. And they just say, yeah, this isn't handicap compliant.
And then they demolish the whole building and we can't.
Then they take the door.
Or they put the pavers in.
That sounds like.
But then they take the door out.
Yeah. Can we take the
Yeah.
door out?
Yeah, is there a reason why we can't take the door out?
No,
Let's do that.
Why don't we just leave the door and not do the papers?
right? But that's exactly right, chief. That's what I'm saying. We leave the door. We don't put the pavers.
But
And
again,
anybody-
I still don't understand why we have the door, right? We voted not to put the door in. Right? And we have a door now, right? So don't quite understand that. The door is leading to significant costs or concern, ADA concerns. So again, what's the value of the door? Why is the door there?
I think the door is there because nobody was backing off of this, and the contractor said, we're going to give you the door. You can have the door for free. You know, we need to move forward. We need to get this done. Let's just put the door in. So then I said, we're going to need a little bit of a ramp to get from the door to the roof. And then the next question was, well, let's not build a ramp. Let's put the pavers in, because the other thing we could do is put in a ramp, which, you know, may or may not cost less than $51,000. I think the $51,000, which I learned about today, I mean, that's significant. So what I said to Steve was, maybe we just do a 6x6 area of pavers in front of the door. So you open the door, the wheelchair goes out, turns around, comes back in.
So I still don't understand why the door is there. Remind me why is the door wasn't in our drawing?
Bob wanted a door there because it's such a large space, and to be able to adequately maintain or safely get to and from and on and off of that space for maintaining the roof drains and so things.
So this door was required by the building inspector.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Does the building inspector understand that it's gonna cost $100,000?
I don't think cares.
And it's not just $50,000 for the pavers. We have to extend the parapet. Now there's the roofing materials already on it.
I think we need to have this conversation with the building inspector in frame of reference of the cap work as well.
And I think we need to be upfront about like the burden this is putting on the taxpayers for minimal gain.
Yeah,
I was more in support of the door part because it made sense from a trying to throw somebody up a ladder to go clean out drains and all that, and there were no other way to get up there. Kind of made sense. But I didn't realize it was going to be $51,000. Like when we were talking about the door, and originally the door was too expensive, I was like, well, hell with it, we're not doing the door. Then the door was given. I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. It's great. But
So, but
Like,
that's why,
do a small area of papers, then, like,
Yeah.
We
whatever.
just got
do.
this price yesterday, so we hadn't even
Yeah.
really,
It's gonna be pavers, can't be like Trex or something that isn't as tall.
yeah, so I get my point is, and this is why when I said to Steve today, right? You can just put the door is going to be in because they've bought it, they're giving it to the town as a donation. They've already framed the wall. They couldn't wait any longer for a decision. And we were trying to just
You already made a decision, Ron.
we can tell them not to put the door in. I have no problem telling them not to put the door in. My only concern is that if we do that, if Bob doesn't issue an occupancy permit,
right.
it's
It
done.
was sort, we sort of took it as it was superseded by the HJ.
I mean, why don't we just say it's not accessible to the public? The door, I agree,
It's not.
adds value to the training. It's easy to get, like, whatever type of training you're doing, I can see the need to have someone easily access that training deck without having to use a ladder.
Yeah, we can't, that was the other thought I had, is that we can't even use it for what it was intended for with just ladders. Like, I can't build props out there.
We still don't know the entire cost of this. I don't know how we proceed, right?
So I think
think-
what Justin said and what the chief is saying, and you do have this option, you just step down. You open the door and you step down onto the deck. Done. And
What's
if
the risk?
anybody,
What's
if
the risk
anybody,
in there?
the risk in that is if anybody shows up and files like I'm talking a member of the community. I'm talking somebody who just goes up there and says, I want to go on there, right? And you simply say, you're not able to do that. And they file a complaint with the American Disabilities the American Disabilities Act with the Justice Department of the US. This is not something that goes to the state of Massachusetts. This is something that's going to go to the federal government. And the federal government's going to come back and say, yes, that should be accessible and you should have a way to get down there, at which case you build a plywood ramp. And you're done.
Or take the door out.
Take the door out.
Or you take the door out. Or you bolt the door shut, use it as a window. And that's it. And so, so I think there's minimal risk,
Benefit for us.
but
I
it
don't
is something that we need to document.
What do they want? Do they want to take on the cost or the risk?
But that
I
risk
think
is,
take on the risk.
the risk is low, really, because if the risk is somebody comes and complains, we have to put in a plywood ramp, I got 50 people in the department that could build a plywood ramp, they're compliant.
And then the building inspector comes around and says, well, you need a parapet around the area that the ramp is in.
But the ramp won't go all the way to the parapet, that's the thing.
Right, the
won't-
ramp
Oh, you
won't go
need
to
a
the
railing.
parapet. The parapet's high enough.
And the parapet is.
What is the minimum way out of this, Ron, is put the door in and don't do anything else.
100%. You put the door in,
door's
you
already
thank the
in.
contractor, you're done.
The door's already in.
And we already talked about putting a placard on the door saying this is for training only, maximum occupancy of 8 or 10 people. Which
Authorized
means
personnel.
and authorized personnel only, which means you can't go out there. And even if you're in a wheelchair, you say, I want to go out there, tough, you can't.
Yeah.
It's authorized people only, you're not authorized.
What if the wheelchair person wants to go on the catwalk for the air handling?
Justin, it's the same issue. And sometimes I joke about things like this, but this is no joke, man. I mean, I've had some weird conversations on the project.
So just to bring the conversation full circle. So anything that we're talking about doing because the door is there could be done at a later date and time.
Yes. And we just, from a liability point of view, as the licensed professionals, we're going to need to document this and get a letter signed by the town that says, we understand this is a training deck. It is not open to folks with disabilities. It is able-bodied only.
It's not open to the public, period.
And it's not open to the public, and it's listed on the, we're going to make sure that that's listed. And the only thing that we want this for is so that 15 years from now, a new chief, a new town administrator, a new,
I'll still
you
be
know-
here in 15 years.
right. But I'm just saying, somebody comes back and says, this wasn't built right. We're going to sue the architect. And we need to be able to say, guys, we had a long discussion about this. It's to get to a training deck. End of story.
I just think about like where I've been to training academy, that you don't have to they don't have to have the training tower be handicap accessible. It's not accessible.
Yeah.
This is not an accessible area. It's not accessible to the public in any way, shape or form.
I think,
I think this one's simple.
yeah,
Let's say-
doors in, we don't do anything else.
Yep.
Yeah, until absolutely necessary.
Okay, thank you on that. The next two, PCO 36, there's, some sleepers needed up on the roof for, one of the mechanical units. They're not charging for that. And then PCO 37, the revisions to the signage, requires some control modules, from the electrician, which was priced at $3,456.12. I don't know, Ron, do you have that? I've got one more slide, but we've sort of already gone over this. This is just a change order update. Like
Yeah.
I said, we've issued 3 change orders. I've got potential change orders excluding some of the like the guardrail items, the catwalk items we talked about today at 76,874, but that does include the 51,000 in favors. So we just increased our contingency in the last 30 seconds.
Maybe we can change the lobby for half the price. Just kidding. Sorry.
So that's
Well, on that
all I
note,
have
though,
for my
Steve,
presentation.
Steve, if I could make a request, just to sort of sum up the conversations we're having at the meeting here today. Could you just put together a quick, what I'll call contingency summary, which outlines, what we have left for contingency, what's in the PCO log, log numbers for any of the items that we've identified, and including, I'm going to ask this, and you can tell me that I'm crazy, but can you try and come up with a worst case? I don't want to say worst case scenario, but worst case scenario for the pipe and the ledge. Like, can we put a price to the possibility that the entire run of pipe we know the depth of it, right? It's all drawn. Can we put a number to how much ledge removal might be required if the entire run was ledge?
We can actually do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve,
We
we
can-
can get that over to you.
Yeah, no,
So, like,
that's just taking a few
Right.
scaling up the drawings.
It's
So
doing
we can get
exactly
a-
what you said, Aaron.
And I want to probably put something in potentially for hazardous too, in case they find something. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I'll put
Like,
the-
it's like a snapshot in time for the last 90 days for us to make decisions from, right? Does that make sense?
Sure.
So the signage, don't look at this 117, okay? 117 is going to remain on the canopy. So what we had in the design was we had Norfolk Fire right here, where it says headquarters, and 117 was on the canopy. So the 117 will stay on the canopy, and instead of it saying Norfolk Fire, it's going to say headquarters. And then over here, we're going to put Norfolk Fire on that center door. That's the only change.
So what?
This,
So we added a sign?
we added a sign. So this gets changed to headquarters. This gets changed to Norfolk Fire. And then we have our canopies over the other doors. The 117 stays down here. So
And these
all
are
we
back-
did was
These
add a
are
sign,
backlit.
and they're backlit. So there was some,
The Norfolk Fire one is a new sign.
nope. The Norfolk Fire moved from here to here.
Okay, the headquarters is a
And
new
the
sign.
headquarters is a new sign, and the 117 is gonna be on the canopy like it always has been, so ignore that piece.
And where did this come from?
Just reviewing the station with the team and the staff and the chief.
And does the town have an opinion on the signage?
It's operational signage, so when we went to the planning board, anything that is over the doors or the entry didn't matter. The only sign they required a permit for was the monumental sign out in front of the station, which we have a permit for, and the design is included in the construction.
Do we know what the signage looks like?
Yeah, it's on the drawing somewhere. I can find that too. Please hold.
Need some
It was operation.
Some elevator music while you're holding, please.
Each door we.
Requests, Taylor Swift. Steve, you know Taylor Swift, can you sing? No?
Something over it. At all. Or didn't do it because.
Maybe Kevin can sing for us.
In the plan and the spec.
Sounds like Don wants to sing, just giggling back there.
Sure, so I'm like, I want to add that, yeah, extra, you know.
I want to feel tall when it's.
You wanna buy it? Nope, that's not it.
So I just want to say,
It may take a few minutes, guys. It's not in the site drawings. I can go find it in the architecturals.
Productive meeting.
Probably had no time to go back.
Steve, are we done with all your stuff?
Yes. Aaron.
it's extra cost with this now
Well
too,
said.
but originally, the only things that were accounted for in the plan were the two over the payment space. So I said, no, just took them all out.
Ron, we're gonna do meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna do meeting minutes while you're looking for this.
Actually,
Okay.
quick question. I do have a quick question before we go to me. So on the signage, so the signs that were already in the plan that were over the ambulance bays, we don't get a credit for that because those aren't in play. We took them out. Is there no credit for those or no? Or those
There was-
weren't action?
No,
There is-
the rescue one and rescue two, that change order had credits and ads in it.
Okay,
And that's just the resultant number.
okay.
And that, again, that's a fairly new one, so we got it, you know, we're looking at it.
No space.
Yeah. It's.
I hope we don't want to make any changes to the site sign because that is permitted by the town. Just for whatever that's worth.
All right. Chris Baker, clerk is out, so I reviewed the February 7th, 2024 meeting minutes, and had no comments. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Was I at that meeting?
No, you
Can't.
I'm for,
moved.
I'll second.
Second. Take, no. All those in favor say aye.
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 Staying.
Abstain. They pass. Thank you. I left German now.
Ron, you gotta move your mouse, yeah. Was that Steve? Or was that Justin?
just trying to see.
Yeah. You can email it to us, Ron.
Yeah, if you want to send it after the meeting, Ron.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll send it to you after the meeting. You can all take a look. I'm sorry. I don't know where the hell it went. It's always in
Any
the
other
last
questions?
place you look, you know.
You're looking to, where maybe site improvements are, the L drawings?
I am. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
There's only 169 drawings to go through.
Look in the free stuff folder.
Any other discussion items? No one? Ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Later on.